incredible fun because we didn't have massive resources, but we had enough resources, and we had to, because we didn't have the technology that was available today, we had to really think outside the square as to how Mr. Jones's transportation or teleportation could happen. And the technical guys built a mirror system, for instance, that sat in front of the camera. It was shot, all the exterior stuff was shot on 16mm. So we had a semi-silvered mirror in front of the camera, and when Roy Laywood had to disappear, we would just cut and lock, the camera was locked, and he would have to stand there for a moment, and then the designer would leap in and look through the viewfinder and draw an outline of him to the shape, and then fit it into the front, and then he would cut out a black card and pop it into the semi-silvered mirror, and then we would take Roy out of the frame. And there was a light that came up, so he wound the light up, it went through the hole in the black card, obliterated the particular point that he was standing in, and then we'd roll the camera again, and of course wind the light down, and he was gone. So it was really that kind of simple in lots of ways, but it was very effective too. And the other philosophy was letting people do most of the work in their own minds, and that we couldn't show them that, so we had to suggest it to them and let them think they'd seen it. And not seeing things often is more scary than actually fronting up to them. Janice Finn had a very, very clear view of what gloss was, and she imparted that well to everybody. So again, from a director's point of view, it was a matter of making sure that that vision was kind of there and finding a way through that. It was a very particular style of visual style and performance style as well, and obviously costume style. So all of those elements meshing together in the right way kind of created the magic that was gloss, really. That was a real fun show to do, and a great cast to work with, and they were committed to doing what they were doing. They were having fun too. And I think that came through in terms of the style. You know, it was a very bitchy kind of show, and that's fun to do as well. Fallout was a massive new challenge because it was very fresh in the minds of the people who were involved in it. That was incredibly challenging to kind of get the feeling of that particular time, because it wasn't, when we made it, which was 1993, and it was set in 84, it wasn't that old, it wasn't that long ago, and a lot of those people, most of those people were still around. So getting performances that were close to the actual people was challenging, and casting the right people in those roles was challenging but fun. It was on air probably only 2 years ago, actually. I just happened to come across it on TV1. I think they were repeating it. I was sat and instantly you recognise a few frames and think, oh, I know that. Sit down and start, oh yeah. And if you can look back at that stage and go, actually, this really holds up, you know, and feel comfortable, really comfortable with watching it again. That's incredibly satisfying. I was the head of production at South Pacific at that stage, and TVNZ had expressed a wish to have a soap opera, and we'd looked at a range of different shows, a police show, a law show, and a medical show, and there were a lot of people involved in these discussions. So there was, you know, who invented Shortland Street? Well, there were a lot of people involved. And then Grundy's also became involved as well, because they'd been soap makers for a long time, although we kind of thought we knew what we were doing anyway, but never turned down a good offer. The biggest thing was really, once the show did go on air, getting the public to buy it, because there was a lot of protest against the nurses, for instance, did not see it as being them being well represented, but it wasn't really a show about nursing. It was a show about relationships from the beginning. And getting people on board with that was probably the trickiest thing, and that was always just going to take time in the end. And that was one of the key things that Grundy's said to us, was that it was going to take that long, and it would go on air with a big splash, and then it would start to slowly drop in the ratings till a particular point, which was 6 to 9 months, and then it would start to become ingrained, and at that point then it would start to pick up again. And they were immaculate. Their timing was absolutely right. It was right on the button. Chris Hampson and Greg McGee and myself, that was kind of our company that got Street Legal up and running, and it took a long time to get it up and going. And Jay had been committed to it from the beginning. We'd always thought of that. Greg in particular wanted a character like Jay in there, and even though Jay was obviously Samoan, that it wasn't about a Samoan lawyer. It was about a lawyer who happened to be Samoan. So that was a really good kind of premise, really, and it was a storefront law office. So it was down on the street. It was a street sort of show. We shot as much as we could in the street. So we were looking for almost guerrilla ways of shooting it, so that it had a real feeling of the city, be it Avondale, Greyland, Ponsonby kind of feel about it, which gave it an energy that it got into the back streets of those particular areas with different sorts of crimes. It was in a way a pseudo police show as well, in that quite often the lawyers got to the crime before the police. So, but you know, that's all good. That's about what that show was, I guess, in the end. Go Girls stylistically for me, because I produced Go Girls, I didn't direct it, and that was a new challenge in working with Gavin and Rachel in the beginning on that and knowing where it was going to go, knowing it was a TV2 8:30 show, and my aim was to point it straight at that slot. It had to stand up at 8:30 on a weeknight and be up with the best of everything that we saw on TV2. It had to be accepted by that TV2 audience, and they had to get involved in it. And it was always, even though it's called Go Girls, it was always aimed at a wider demographic than that suggests, and that is apparent when you look at the numbers, that once guys realised that they could actually watch it safely, it wasn't just about Go Girls, it was actually a lot about Kev and how he thought about life. That you could see guys starting to really get involved with it. And I know young guys who are mechanics friends of my daughter and stuff, who suddenly went, wow, I really like this show. You know, they really identified with it. It says it's about the North Shore. It's about the North Shore, but it's about New Zealand. You know, it really is, and I think people get that. I think that can be those people can be anywhere. I've been incredibly lucky. I've had a hell of a lot of fun. I've worked with some fantastic people, and if anyone asked me what I would have rather done, there ain't anything I would have rather done. I've just had an awesome time, really. I mean, a lot of it's been tricky and hard and all that, but crikey, if it wasn't, you wouldn't feel satisfied about what you do.